Hi, I'm Mike McLean. Welcome to the Short Circuit podcast brought to you by Swift Aircraft. In this series, we'll be chatting with a variety of people from all walks of life, but who all have one thing in common: aviation. We'll discuss how and why they got into aviation, what or who inspired them, and what they would say to encourage young people to get involved. Flight fascinates many of us, and our guests will explain why they are compelled to look to the sky. Today's chat is with Claire Hatton. Claire holds a senior position in air traffic management and, among other things, is a member of the British Women's Pilots Association. I was keen to hear her story and how her part of the industry works. But before we kick off, I have a quick request. Please remember to click the like button, share this with friends and colleagues, and subscribe. It really does help us do this. So, with that in mind, here goes. Okay, well, good evening, Claire Hatton. Welcome to the Short Circuit podcast. And we'll start off with question number one, and that is, who are you and what is your current role in aviation?
Good evening, Mike. Thank you for having me. So my current role is that I am Air Traffic Control Safety Manager at Liverpool John Lennon Airport. In fact, my role also covers Teesside Airport because that is also part of the same company. It's slightly complicated, so I won't go into it, but my role also covers Teesside to a small extent. But mostly I'm based in Liverpool.
Right, okay. And I don't believe so. You're not part of NATS, the National
No,
Right,
everybody
okay.
thinks all air traffic is NATS, and it's not. So
Okay.
yes.
So, right, well, we maybe come back to that a little bit because I'm curious about that because I was of the same opinion until you told me otherwise.
I
So,
was until I went into air traffic. So
right,
yes, no, it'd be good to talk about that. Clear
okay,
that up.
all right. Well, before we get to that, then, so our regular question is: so, what got you started in aviation? How, was it at school? Was it after school? What got you looking upwards?
It was at school. I had just turned 14. I was going on a summer holiday with my parents from Manchester Airport, which is our local airport.
Mm-hmm.
And I had always enjoyed the flight as a child going on holiday. But then this particular flight, it's very strange. I don't quite know what happened. I don't know where it came from, but I was absolutely captivated by it. Maybe having just turned 14, I was just at the age where I was perhaps more receptive to thinking about perhaps what job I'd like to do in the future. And something happened on that flight, and I've never been the same since, quite honestly. It was just, I just thought, this is amazing. This is so exciting. And this is what I want to do. I want to fly. Somehow, don't know anything about it. Nobody in my family had any connection to aviation whatsoever. So when we got back from the holiday, we made a few inquiries. Well, my mum and dad phoned around a few local flying schools because we literally knew nothing at all about even where to start. And as they do, they invited us down for a look around and a coffee, as flying clubs do when you have a prospective person who's interested in flying.
Mm-hmm.
And then they told us how much it was, and we thought, oh my goodness, how are we ever going to do that? I don't know. But fortunately, I was ever so lucky in a way that day when we'd gone down to have a look around, the chap who owned the school said to my mum and dad, if she'd like to just come down on a Sunday and help out, she'd be more than welcome.
Mm-hmm.
So my mind was blown. I was absolutely so thrilled by the prospect of that. So from then on a Sunday, I was the flying school helper, just doing anything and everything, just to be there, be surrounded by aeroplanes and surrounded by pilots. And that was at a flying school at Manchester Airport.
Wow.
Southside, where runway 2 now is.
Mm-hmm. There is something a little bit magical about getting airside at an airport, especially a big airport.
Yes.
It's like not forbidden territory. It's just a different country when you
Yeah,
get
well,
there.
it is. I mean, funnily enough, the south side at Manchester, as it was then, not there anymore because that's where runway 2 now is. It was just all open. I mean, things were a lot less strict in the 90s than they are now. So anybody could just drive onto the south side where the flying clubs were. But of course, most people wouldn't even know they were there, I suppose. So there were not that many people there, really. But yeah, it was an absolute privilege to be just immersed in that from the age of 14.
Wow.
And so whether my parents thought it was just a phase and it would wear off, I don't know, but it didn't.
So can you remember on that flight out, what aircraft you were in?
Yes,
What
it
was it?
was an Air 2000 757.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Long spindly legs. Air 2000. I haven't heard of them for a long time. Crikey.
Oh,
Yeah. All right.
very
Okay.
popular at Manchester. Yeah, we had lots of them at Manchester in the days
Mhm.
when it was sort of Britannia and Monarch and all of those ones.
And where were you going that holiday? Do you know?
We were going to Kenya
Wow.
for 2 weeks in Kenya for a safari and a bit on the beach. So yeah, it was very exciting.
That's
Big holiday.
yeah, that's a trip to remember, isn't it? Great. Okay, so you got on a 757, you took off, it captivated you. You had your holiday, you flew back, still as excited. Yeah.
Yes, if not more so.
All right. Then got in touch with local flying school, went down there and became General Sunday dog's body.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so sweeping up, cleaning, wiping down things.
Getting all the dead flies off the leading edge,
Hmm.
washing them all. Yeah, answering the phone, helping with refueling, all that kind of thing. Just absolutely loved it.
Right. And did you, I mean, I'm assuming that you managed to blag your way into a few short flights or cross-country trips and that sort of thing?
Yes. So my mum and dad bought me a trial lesson for Christmas that year.
Hmm.
So I had my first trial lesson when I was 14. And because of course at that age you can fly and you can log flying from 14 for a PPL, but it's not worth doing too much because in a way you couldn't really go any further until you're old enough to go solo and get a license issued.
Hmm.
So I was obviously still at school at that point, so I had this trial lesson and I did get to go with other people as well because I was always there and got to know people because I was regular and you get to know the regulars. So I just became part of the furniture, and anytime anybody had a spare seat, they would ask me if I'd like to go, which was just amazing, really exciting.
And you sat there with a big grin on your face and
Absolutely, yes.
looking at
Yeah.
all the dials and buttons and levers and
I know, and thinking, how will I ever be able to do this?
okay, so you're air traffic safety manager for a couple of locations, but
Yes.
I believe you're involved with other aviation related organizations and groups and so on. So come on, give me the list. What else
Yeah.
do you get up involved
So
in?
I've I've just joined the Royal Aeronautical Society, in fact, just this year. So that's nice. I'm a
Congratulations.
new member of that, thank you. And the British Women Pilots Association is the organisation I've been involved in for a long time.
Mhm.
I joined that in 1996, which is when I first found out about it. And I've been a member pretty much ever since. So I currently am on the committee and I'm a membership coordinator. So I look after all of the memberships, new people who join, people who renew, answer any queries they've got. And I also run the Northwest regional group as well,
Okay.
which is really lovely.
Can I ask for the British Women Pilots Association, what are the membership numbers? I have no knowledge about the organization, so
Yeah, it's around about 500.
okay.
So I don't know what the numbers used to be like, but certainly in the last few years we have attracted more members. I think we've got better at our communications and social media presence and all of that kind of thing. So I think I would guess this is probably the most members has ever been since it was created in the 50s. So it's
All
been
right.
going a long time.
So
Yeah.
it goes back that far. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Because I mean, there is a history of some high profile women in aviation. I mean, I know there have always been women involved in aviation, but there are a few sort of big names kicking around that always tend to crop up. As I guess most people think of aviation as very much male dominated, but there are a lot of women around and have been for a long time. So
Yes, there were the big well-known characters, weren't there, like Amy Johnson, people like that. The BWPA was formed by former ATA pilots, you know, the Air Transport Auxiliary.
yeah,
I believe it was a group of them who set it up in the 1950s, because women were still not allowed to fly commercially at that point, and you
really,
couldn't fly in the Air Force as a pilot if you were female. So although the numbers were very small, female pilots did exist, but they couldn't really do it as a job. I'm not exactly entirely sure of the date when women were first allowed to fly commercially, but I think it was certainly around that sort of time, maybe the 60s, something like that. And even
right.
then, it would have only been very, very rare to see a woman
Mhm.
flying. So, I mean, nowadays you do, well, in air traffic, obviously we listening to the radio all the time. We have, it's quite busy at Liverpool, so we have various airlines coming in, and you do hear a good number of female voices
Mhm.
flying commercially, even though it's still very much, you know, a small number really compared to the number of commercial pilots in total.
Okay, okay, it's a small percentage but growing.
Yeah,
Okay,
hopefully.
okay. Any other organisation? Have you had involvement with the cadet force and things like what was the other thing? I thought I saw something about you with the Air League and that sort of thing.
So I was a member of the Air League quite a number of years ago. I was lucky enough to be awarded a bursary from the Air League towards some of my flying qualifications. But I haven't been a member of that for a while. But on Thursday, I am attending an event through the British Women Pilots Association, which is an Air League event, which
Oh, right,
a
okay.
few of us are going to. So we're all looking forward to that, and it should be really interesting. That's at the House of Commons.
Oh, wow.
So, nice trip to London for me on Thursday, which I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
forward to.
Rubbing shoulders with the great and the good.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it should be good. We're all looking forward to it.
And what about the cadets? Did you ever get involved with them?
Funnily enough, I was not in the cadets. I know it's an excellent way for young people to start and to get into aviation. I think probably because I was working at the flying school anyway, so that was what I did. That was my weekends. So yeah, I never particularly, because I was literally only interested in the flying. I
Right.
was aware of the Air Training Corps, it was probably called then, before it became Air Cadets. And I wasn't really interested in all of the other stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted the aviation.
Yeah, just
So
wanted to get in the air. That was it.
absolutely, I was more than happy with my weekend job at the flying school.
Okay. Going back to school days, when you were at school, were you doing technically minded stuff, or what was your big thing at school? Where did you see yourself going before you discovered a 757?
Funnily enough, I wanted to be a PE teacher when I was 13 because I absolutely loved PE.
Mm-hmm.
Really loved sport and loved PE. I wanted to be a PE teacher. That was when I was just probably prior to 13. You're not even really thinking about what job you want to do, are you? But at 13, that's what I wanted to do. And then all of a sudden aviation came along, and that's it. PE went out of the window. So having decided I wanted to be a pilot, everything I did at school from age 14 onwards, I just tailored towards aviation. So if we were doing a project like my GCSE art and design, it was all aeroplanes.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Fortunately, my art teacher, he was a bit of a plane spotter. So as soon as he saw me drawing all these aircraft and from photographs I'd taken at the airport, and then drawing pictures from them and things like that, I think he suddenly thought, "Wow, what's this? This is interesting." So we struck up quite a good friendship, and we still send each other Christmas cards even
Oh,
now
wow.
because of that. Our aviation connection. In fact, I took him flying once. This is when I'd obviously qualified much later, having left school. I took him and his two children flying. So that was really nice. But really in school, I mean, the subjects, I did choose sciences because I was more interested in the science side. So I did sciences for A level because that obviously lends itself to doing pilot sort of related subjects, flying related subjects. Then I just wanted to save up the money to do all my commercial license and everything. So after school, I was still working at the flying school. It then became more of a proper part-time job, just to save up the money to do all the flying, because unfortunately, all this flying costs a lot of money. So
Yeah, it's not cheap
yeah,
necessarily, is it?
it's not the cheapest profession to get into.
Okay. I'm curious then, air traffic safety management. So how did you get into that? Because that's a bit of a, it's not a hard left turn, but it's a slight deviation
Yeah, it is
from.
a slight deviation, isn't it? So I had been a flying instructor for many years. But being a flying instructor in the northwest of England is, we're not famous for our fantastic weather conditions in this part of the world. And you can imagine for PPL training, it does need to be reasonably good weather for most of the lessons. So I was just getting a bit frustrated having done the job for 15 years. And a few of the other instructors at the school I was working at Liverpool had gone off and become air traffic control assistants because it's more of a sort of reliable job, which irrespective of the weather, it can continue. It doesn't matter, come rain or shine. And I thought, well, that sounds interesting because I had always been interested in air traffic. I think probably most people who are interested in aviation are interested in air traffic, aren't they? Because it's just an interesting area. So I thought, well, maybe I could do that. So I had a look on the website, and funnily enough, they were recruiting that day when I looked. So I applied for it and I got it. So I first went into air traffic as an assistant, and I only did that for about 6 months. And then an internal promotion came up for doing safety and compliance. And because when I had been working as an instructor, I was quite involved in all CAA audits and all that kind of thing. So because of that experience, I got this job. So I became the safety and compliance person for air traffic. And then that just developed into being the safety manager. So I'm sort of the person who does the investigations, oversees, making sure that all our risk management processes are done correctly, reviewed, up to date, deal with the CAA. Obviously, CAA audits are a big part of my job. And just all of that, really, making sure that everything we do is as safe as it can be. And if we find that perhaps a procedure isn't working as it should, finding a better way to do things to improve safety.
Right, okay. So the company you work for is an independent company.
Yes. So it's called Air Traffic Control Services Limited.
Right.
It's
Okay.
an air navigation services provider, an ANSP.
Right. Okay.
So years ago, it was all NATS. Everything was NATS. And then some time ago, I'm not exactly sure when, I think possibly around the late 90s, it was changed so that private companies could set up their own. You could become an air navigation services provider if you met the criteria for doing so. So airports like Liverpool, like Birmingham, East Midlands, big airports, they all do their own air traffic.
All right.
So it's no longer, when you're speaking to someone on the radio, it's now, there's more chance that you're not talking to NATS than you are talking to NATS.
Right. Okay. So as an aircraft moving across the country, so say you had somebody flying short haul from Glasgow to Liverpool, well, Glasgow to Birmingham with a stop off at Liverpool. All right. So somebody's doing that. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when they leave Glasgow, that's under NATS.
I don't actually know what Glasgow is.
Yeah, well, because
Edinburgh's not NATS. I
we've
don't
got
know whether Glasgow is NATS.
yeah, we've got Prestwick just down the road, which is the big NAT centre.
That's the area centre for
Yeah.
the airspace, the upper airspace.
Yeah.
Yes, that's all still NATS, but the actual aerodromes
Right.
A lot
Okay.
of them
I
do
need
their
to
own.
investigate further and find out. Okay. So I'm assuming that the procedures are such that as an aircraft moves down the country, it gets handed from one controller to another, and
Yes,
that's,
that's
as
right.
far as the pilot's concerned, it's seamless. He doesn't
Seamless. Yep,
he
that's the
doesn't
idea.
he or she doesn't care which company he's talking to. It's just
No,
right. Okay. So it's all
doesn't
part
make
of
any
one big
difference.
right.
And like with pilot licenses, all the controllers have the same license.
Right.
It's just that the company they work for has a different name. That's all, really.
Okay. And is there sort of demarcation altitude between, is all the upper airway stuff, is that all NATS and the lower stuff is the independent
Yeah,
companies? Or?
it differs all over the country. So if you look at an aeronautical chart, you'll see all the different lines, so many lines all over it. And that shows you the different altitudes of all the different parts of the airspace. So it's just different at every place because like at Liverpool, for example, we've got Manchester next door to us.
Mhm.
So we're quite hemmed in
Yeah.
with Manchester's airspace to the east of us and above us. So each place is different, but it's all marked on the charts. And yeah, the controllers will just, as soon as you're reaching the boundary of their airspace, they will pass you on to the next agency that you need to speak to.
Okay.
Well,
Fascinating.
that's why sometimes if you are flying GA and you've just decided, oh, I think I'll call Liverpool up and just get a service from them. If you've not booked in advance or if you're not on a flight plan,
Mhm.
there's a momentary pause because they have to grab a strip and literally write down what you're saying because they're not expecting you, so they've got no details. So when they
Right.
say pass your message, they're literally writing down what you're saying.
Well, that leads quite nicely into my next question. So I normally keep this one quite general, but I'm going to narrow it down for you a little bit. So the question is, what developments and innovations do you see coming over the horizon in terms of technology and so on? But for you, just because I'm evil and wicked, I'm going to say the field is air traffic control and communications, not necessarily developments on planes. So I'm not interested in the latest materials to make bendy wings out of. It's like who's in charge, who's got the traffic lights, and what traffic lights are coming in the future.
Yeah, I mean, at the big places like Heathrow, for example, would have absolutely all of the gizmos and the Gucci equipment with all the fancy bells and whistles.
Mhm.
And over time, the smaller places are getting that kit. There's a lot of very useful kit that a lot of airports have got, such as airspace infringement warning tools, which
Mhm.
shows the controller if there's an infringement. Short-term conflict alert, which flashes up if two aircraft are sort of heading towards each other,
Mhm.
flashes up to warn the controller, because you can imagine a controller's just looking at a radar screen, concentrating on all their aircraft, but if there's something particularly complex going on in one particular place,
Mhm.
their attention can't always be on the whole radar screen. So something could be happening that they're not aware of on the other
Yeah.
side of the radar screen, just in those few moments when their attention is focused in one area.
Right. So
So
if you
they call them safety nets, which are very useful. And the smaller places over time are getting those kind of safety nets just to help safety again, because even things like infringements, it may be that somebody's wingtip just clips the airspace,
Mhm.
but it could be that somebody flies straight through the airspace in the path of a passenger airliner and, causes a major safety incident. So the airspace is there for a reason, to protect commercial traffic and to protect everyone who's in it. So infringements are a massive problem. In fact, I'm also chair of the Northwest Local Airspace Infringement Team, which is a collaboration between the CAA and all the local airfields. There are lots of them all over the country. And that's just it, just looking at talking to air traffic controllers, pilots, flying schools, airports, just trying to come up with initiatives and strategies to try and reduce infringements, help to educate pilots to prevent infringements. So it's very much in a just culture and trying to educate rather than, having your license torn up, because nobody wants that.
No.
Everyone wants everyone to be
Do
more
you,
aware, better equipped, and have a safer, happier flight. I mean, outside controlled airspace in Class G, it's purely see and avoid. So
right,
people
okay.
can go about their business doing whatever aerial activity they want, as long as they're not infringing any notified volumes of airspace, to use the correct term. So
Ooh,
not just controlled airspace, but like restricted areas, danger areas, that sort of thing.
okay.
But yeah, in Class G, you could come across anything at all, and you just have to make sure you keep your eyes out of the window and
Mm,
avoid each other. That's
uh,
something in terms of future proofing, electronic conspicuity. That's
mhm.
something which is coming along, and that's very, very proving to be very useful.
Right,
So
okay.
that's something that hopefully will get more widespread in GA to help each other, to help enhance the lookout using technology as well.
Okay. Excellent. Well, listen, you're not going to believe this, but time has marched on and we're almost at the end of this this conversation. So this brings us to the big question of the day and the last one, and that is, what's your favorite plane and why?
Well, it's no great surprise that forever my favorite aircraft has been the beautiful Boeing 757.
Okay.
She's an absolute beauty, just perfectly proportioned. Those lovely engines, when they used to give it the beans, sound absolutely fantastic. I'm sad that most of them have now retired. There are
Hmm.
still some flying around, but yeah, that has always been my first love. So yeah.
And in any particular livery or
I mean, Air 2000 did used to have lovely red engines, so I did used to always like the red engines.
hmm,
But I'll take it in any colour. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. If
I,
I win
I
the lottery, I might go to America and do a 757 type rating just to get it on my license.
well, Iceland Air have still got a couple, and they
Yeah.
are very pretty.
They
So
are very pretty. They
they
are.
so the 757 is your aircraft of choice.
Yes.
Um, right. I mean, I must admit, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you because you've covered and have got yourself involved with so many different aspects of aviation, starting at a young age, and you've got that bug, and you've just battered your way into the industry, and then forged your own path, and you're now keeping everybody safe. Um,
Trying to, yes.
yeah, I mean, it sounds like you've had a wonderful career in that.
Yeah. I've enjoyed it. I really have.
Marvelous, marvelous. Well, Claire, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I'm going to wrap this up just now. In the meantime, look after yourself and do good work with the British Women Pilots Association. I'm sure
Yeah.
we'll see you around at some trade shows and that sort of thing. Enjoy the House of Commons. Is it
Thank
Commons?
you.
Or is it the Lords? No, it's the Commons in here. So enjoy
Yeah.
the House of Commons when you get down there. And the only other thing I can say is fly safe.
Thank you very much.
No
Lovely
problem.
talking to you. Thanks, Mike.
So that was Claire Hatton. Having been bitten by the bug in her teens, she focused her energies at school to follow her dreams. She also put in the time and effort by volunteering at her local flying club and getting involved. This is a recurring theme among our guests. Just being present and showing enthusiasm and willing can get you a long way. But she didn't stop at piloting and instructing, but has spread her wings into air traffic control and safety, showing that there is more to aviating than just taking the controls. So we say thanks to Claire for #inspiring aviation, and particularly in her position, for helping us all to fly safe. You have been listening to The Short Circuit, presented by Mike McLean and sponsored by Swift Aircraft with the #InspiringAviation. This has been a Zoom Spike production.